Gondolin Station floated silently in space. It circled a star that was growing old and weak, its light dimming. The station itself was a wonder. It had tall towers made of something like crystal, shining with soft colors. Gardens grew on platforms that seemed to hang in the air, defying gravity. This was not a place built by aliens. It was built by humans, a special kind of human. Long ago, people called them elves. They were changed to be stronger, smarter, and to live much longer. They valued peace, art, and knowledge above all else. Now Gondolin was their last home, hidden away. But their peace was ending. On the main viewing deck, a man named Alan Vance stood very still. His hair was silver, and his face showed he had seen many hard things. His eyes, usually sharp, looked tired as he watched the distant stars. Alan was the commander here. He felt the weight of protecting everyone on Gondolin. Suddenly, a soft but urgent sound filled the quiet room. Lights on a large panel nearby flashed red. Alan turned, his tiredness vanishing, replaced by alertness. He walked quickly to the panel. "Report," he said, his voice calm but firm. A younger man, John Carter, stood at another panel. John looked tough, with scars on his face from past fights. He was a soldier, one of the few who knew how to fight. "Sensors confirm, Commander Vance," John said, his voice tight. "It's Helena's fleet. They've broken through the nebula cloud. They found us." Alan's jaw tightened. Queen Helena. She ruled a vast empire of humans who believed only in power and control. She hated the people of Gondolin, calling them weak dreamers who needed to be erased. Her warships were called the Iron Fist Fleet, known for their ruthlessness. They were getting closer, fast. On another screen nearby, a woman named Lisa Burke worked frantically. Her hands moved over glowing controls. One of her arms was metal, a tool as much as a limb. She was Gondolin's best engineer. "They're coming in fast, Alan," she called out, her voice strained. "Multiple heavy warships. Their weapons are powering up." Alan looked back out the huge window. Tiny points of light, too many to count, were growing brighter against the dark space. Helena's ships? Coming to destroy the last beautiful thing. He felt a deep sadness, but also a fierce determination. They could run, maybe. Hide again. But Helena would never stop hunting them. Gondolin was tired of hiding. He was tired of hiding. This place, these people, they deserved a stand, even if only once. He turned away from the window, facing John and Lisa. His eyes met theirs. He saw the same resolve mirrored back at him. Fear, yes, but also courage. "Sound general quarters," Alan ordered, his voice clear and strong in the tense quiet. "Alert all sections, shields to maximum. Prepare all defensive points." He paused, taking a deep breath. The moment felt huge. We do not run. We do not hide. This ends here. This is where we make our final stand. Alarms began to wail softly throughout the station, a signal everyone understood. The quiet peace of Gondolin was shattered. People moved quickly through the shining halls, not panicking, but with purpose. They went to their assigned places. Some to shield generators, some to medical bays, others to help move children and elders to safer inner zones. Juan Vance stayed on the command deck, watching the approaching storm of warships grow larger on the screens. The beautiful crystal towers outside glowed brighter as energy shields snapped into place around the station. It looked like a fragile jewel about to be crushed by a giant fist. But inside that jewel, the last of the elves, these changed humans, prepared to fight for their home, their way of life, and their very existence. The calm before the battle was heavy in the air. The siege of Gondolin had begun. The first hits rocked Gondolin Station hard. Bright flashes of light exploded against the energy shields outside the crystal towers. The whole station shuddered, like a giant hand had slapped it. Inside the command deck, lights flickered. Alan Vance gripped the edge of a control panel to stay upright. The beautiful view of stars was now filled with the ugly shapes of Queen Helena's warships. They fired again and again.
Ow!
"Shields holding at 80%, Lisa Burke shouted. Her metal arm moved swiftly over the glowing controls. Her face was tight with concentration. Sweat beaded on her forehead. "But they're pounding us non-stop, Alan. The energy drain is huge." John Carter stood nearby, his hand resting on the grip of his heavy rifle. He watched the screens showing the enemy ships. "They're trying to overwhelm us fast," he growled. "Break us quickly." Suddenly, a new image appeared on the main screen. A woman's face filled the view. She had sharp features, cold eyes, and dark hair pulled back severely. It was Queen Helena herself. Her voice crackled through the speakers, smooth but hard as ice. "Commander Alan Vance," she said. "Your little jewel looks fragile. Surrender now. Open your shields. Give me your people. Your so-called elves are relics of a foolish past. Weak, useless. They have no place in my empire." She leaned closer to her own screen. "End this pointless defiance, or I will burn Gondolin out of the sky." Alan stared at her image, his expression stone. He didn't hesitate. He reached out and cut the communication with a sharp gesture. Helena's face vanished. "We answer her with actions, not words," he stated. Lisa reinforced the forward shields. "Redirect power from non-essential sections. Gardens, lighting, anything." Lisa nodded, her fingers flying. "Doing it now." Lights dimmed slightly across the station as power shifted to the shields. Outside, the barrage continued. The shields flared brightly with each impact, like a dome of rippling water under heavy rain. Gondolin shook constantly. Alarms wailed softly in the background. Then Lisa gasped. "Alan? Something new. One of the big ships. It's deploying something strange, not a normal weapon." She pointed to a sensor reading. Massive energy signature building. Different pattern. Before Alan could ask, a thick, dark beam lanced out from the largest enemy ship. It didn't explode against the shield. Instead, it seemed to drill into it, like a screw into wood. Where it touched, the shimmering energy shield turned black and began to crackle violently. "It's tearing through," Lisa cried out, her voice rising in alarm. "Some kind of focused gravity weapon. A singularity drill. It's punching a hole." Alan's heart sank. "Where is it targeting?" "Sector 7. John barked, already moving towards the exit. Sector 7 was deep inside the station, near the lower levels. "If that beam gets through the hole..." "Go," John Allen ordered. "Take your squad, seal the breach. Hold them off as long as you can." Buy us time. John didn't waste a second. He slapped a button on his wrist communicator. "Carter to all security? Breach imminent in Sector 7. Move, move, move. Combat gear. We hold the line." He ran from the command deck, his heavy boots pounding on the floor. The screen, the dark beam kept drilling relentlessly. The shield flickered wildly around the point of impact. Lisa worked frantically, trying to reroute power, trying to find a frequency to disrupt the drill. "It's no good," she muttered, desperation creeping in. "It's designed to eat through shields like this." A terrible sound echoed through the station's structure, a deep, groaning screech of tearing metal. It came from far below. "Breach," a voice yelled over the comms. It was one of John's men. "Sector 7. Outer hall compromised? We have enemy troops entering. Repeat, enemy troops inside Gondolin." The battle was no longer just outside. The enemy was inside their home. The beautiful, peaceful halls of Gondolin's lower levels were now a battlefield. John Carter and his small team of soldiers were racing towards the sound of tearing metal and the first terrifying cracks of enemy gunfire. Time was running out. The deep groan of tearing metal echoed through Gondolin Station, followed by the sharp hiss of escaping air. Alarm screamed louder now. The red lights pulsed in the corridors of Sector 7. John Carter and his soldiers sprinted towards the sound, their boots loud on the floor. They turned a corner and stopped dead. A jagged hole had been ripped through the outer wall. Thick smoke poured out. Through the smoke, dark shapes moved. Soldiers in heavy black armor clambered through the breach, their weapons raised. They fired instantly. Bright bolts of energy slammed into the corridor walls. "Take cover," John yelled, shoving a younger soldier named Daniel Shaw behind a support pillar. Energy bolts sizzled past them. Lean leaned out and fired his own heavy rifle. A bolt hit an enemy soldier square in the chest, throwing him backwards. "Hold this corridor. Don't let them spread." His team spread out, using doorways and pillars for cover. They fired back at the invaders. The air filled with the crackle of weapons and shouts. More enemy soldiers kept pouring through the hole. They seemed endless. John knew they were badly outnumbered. "John, we need reinforcements." Daniel shouted, ducking back as a bolt scorched the wall near his head. His hands shook, but he kept firing. "None coming, kid," John yelled back, reloading quickly. "Every hand is needed elsewhere. We are the reinforcements we hold here." Up on the command deck, Alan Vance watched the battle unfold on flickering screens. The enemy was pushing deeper into Sector 7. John's team was putting up a fierce fight. But the black-armored soldiers were relentless. They advanced step by step, using heavy firepower. "Lisa," Alan called, his voice tight. "We need options. They're inside. Can we seal off Sector 7? Lisa Burke was already working frantically at her station. Her metal arm moved with blurring speed. Sweat ran down her face. "The breach is too big, Alan. The emergency doors in that section are damaged. They won't close fully." She pulled up another screen. BUT, the core reactor. The main power source. Alan looked at her sharply. "What about it?" Lisa met his eyes, her expression grim but determined. "It has a failsafe, an overload sequence. If we set it off, it would destroy the entire station. Nothing would be left for Helena. None of our technology, none of our people captured." The meaning hung heavy in the air. Complete destruction. Alan closed his eyes for a second. It was the last choice. But seeing the enemy flood his home, seeing John's team being pushed back, he knew Helena couldn't win. Gondolin couldn't fall into her hands. "Do it, Lisa," Alan ordered, his voice low but firm. "Set the overload. Give us... an hour." 1 hour. Lisa nodded, her jaw set. Her fingers flew over the controls. "Overload sequence initiated," she confirmed. A low, powerful hum began to vibrate through the deck plates, deeper and stronger than before. 1 hour until detonation. "The core is going critical." John Allen spoke into his communicator, his voice cutting through the noise of battle below. "You have 1 hour, maximum effort. Contain them in Sector 7. By time for the others to get deeper inside." Down in the smoke-filled corridor, John heard the message. 1 hour, he fired 3 quick shots, dropping another enemy. "You heard the commander?" He roared to his men. 1 hour, make every second count. "Push them back." He charged forward, firing wildly. His men followed, screaming defiance. For a moment, they drove the invaders back towards the breach. But more soldiers kept coming through the hole. It was like trying to hold back the tide. Daniel fought bravely beside John, his fear replaced by desperate courage. Lisa watched the reactor readings climb on her screen. The hum grew louder. She knew she needed to get back to the command deck. She turned to leave her engineering station near the reactor core. Suddenly, the door hissed open. 3 enemy soldiers stood there, weapons raised. They must have found a service tunnel. Lisa froze. They aimed at her. There was no time to fight, no time to run. Lisa looked past them to the reactor control panel. The countdown was active. If they stopped it? With a fierce yell, she slammed her hand onto a large red button on the wall. Emergency bulkheads, thick metal doors, slammed down from the ceiling and up from the floor, sealing the entire reactor chamber with a final clang. Lisa was sealed inside with the 3 enemy soldiers. The deep hum of the reactor filled the small space. The soldiers looked around, confused and then alarmed. Lisa Burke stood facing them, her back to the glowing core. A small, defiant smile touched her lips as she raised her metal arm. "Too late," she said. "For all of us." The reactor's hum deepened into an angry roar. The battle for Gondolin had entered its final, desperate phase. Time was running out for everyone. The command deck was overrun. Alan Vance saw it on the flickering screens. Black-armored soldiers swarmed the place he had stood just minutes before. There was no time left. The deep, angry hum of the reactor pulsed through the station walls. A constant reminder. 1 hour. Less than that now. Fall back. Alan ordered the few soldiers still near him. To the Hall of Kings now. They ran, Alan leading the way. The beautiful corridors were filled with smoke and the smell of burning. Distant shouts and weapon fire echoed. They reached the Hall of Kings, a vast, high-ceilinged room. Tall windows showed the battle raging outside. Holograms of Gondolin's ancient leaders flickered silently around the edges of the room, watching. Only 12 defenders made it inside before Alan slammed his hand on the door controls. Thick metal doors slid shut and locked with heavy clunks. They were sealed in. For now, the group panted, leaning on weapons or each other. Among them was the young soldier, Daniel Shaw. His face was smudged with dirt, his eyes wide but trying hard to be brave. "We make our stand here," Alan said, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. He checked his energy pistol. It's almost empty. Many others had only blades or tools. Behold this room. For Gondolin, for everyone who couldn't run deeper, the hum grew louder. The deck plates vibrated under their feet. Time was slipping away fast. Suddenly, a powerful blast shook the heavy doors. Then another. Metal groaned. The doors buckled inward. With a final deafening crash, they exploded off their tracks. Smoke filled the doorway. Through the smoke walked Queen Helena. She wore sleek, dark armor, a cruel-looking pistol in her hand. Behind her crowded her elite guards, their weapons trained on Alan and his small group. Helena's cold eyes scanned the room, lingering on the ancient holograms before settling on Alan. A thin, unpleasant smile touched her lips. "So," she said, her voice echoing in the large hall, "the great Commander Vance? Hiding in your tomb of memories?" She took a step forward, her guards spreading out. "You fought well. Better than I expected from dreamers. But look around you. It's over. Your pretty station is dying. Your people are finished." She raised her pistol, aiming it squarely at Alan's chest. "This foolish story ends now. Surrender yourself. Maybe I'll spare these last few." Alan didn't flinch. He looked past the gun, straight into Helena's eyes. He felt the weight of the small device in his pocket, Elise's final message. "It ends," Alan agreed, his voice quiet but carrying clearly. "But not how you think." He pulled the device from his pocket. It was a small projector. He pressed a button. A life-sized hologram of Lisa Burke appeared beside Alan. She looked tired, determined, standing near the glowing reactor core. Her voice, recorded earlier, filled the hall. "Asterisk reactor overload is irreversible. Critical mass in 15 minutes. Gondolin will be consumed. Nothing will remain. Asterisk." The hologram showed the timer counting down rapidly. It's less than 15 minutes now. Helena's cold smile vanished. Her face went pale. Her guards shifted nervously, looking at each other. "You... ... You're insane," Helena hissed, her voice losing its smooth control. "You would destroy everything. Your own people." Alan switched off the projector. Lisa's image vanished. "We chose," Alan said simply. "We choose how we fall. We choose not to be your prize. Gondolin dies free. And you," he looked straight at Helena, "you die with it." Helena's face twisted with rage and sudden fear. "Kill them," she screamed. "Kill them all." Her elite guards surged forward. Alan's small group met them with desperate fury. There were no fancy tactics now. It was close, brutal, and final. Blades flashed. Energy bolts sizzled in the smoky air. Men and women fell on both sides. Young Daniel Shaw fought like a wild thing. He drove his knife into a guard's neck, then grabbed the guard's fallen pistol. He fired wildly, hitting another guard before a third slammed into him. Daniel staggered, but drove his knife upwards into the guard's stomach. Even as another bolt burned into his side, he collapsed, taking two enemies down with him. Alan moved towards Helena. He parried a guard's thrust with his empty pistol, then smashed the heavy weapon into the man's face. He grabbed the guard's fallen blade. Helena fired at him. The bolt seared his shoulder, but he kept coming. He knocked her pistol aside with the blade. They faced each other alone for a moment amidst the chaos. Helena drew a short, sharp sword from her back. Alan raised his bloodied blade. The hum of the reactor was a roar now, shaking the room. The holograms of the ancient kings flickered violently. Helena lunged. Alan blocked. Their blades clashed. They were both tired, hurt, desperate. Helena was strong and fast, driven by fury. Alan fought with the calm strength of someone who had nothing left to lose but this final moment. He pushed her back, step by step, towards the center of the hall, towards the ancient crystal throne of Gondolin. The throne glowed faintly, connected deep within the station's failing systems. Alan saw the timer in his mind. Seconds left. Saw Daniel's still form. He saw his fallen friends. With a last burst of strength, Alan knocked Helena's blade wide. He dropped his own weapon. Instead of striking, he threw himself forward, wrapping his arms around her. He drove them both backward. Helena screamed, clawing at him. They crashed hard onto the crystal throne. Aline held her tight against the glowing seat. "For Gondolin," he whispered, his voice lost in the reactor's final shattering scream as the world turned white. Light. Terrible. Blinding white light swallowed everything. It poured from the crystal throne where Alan Vance held Queen Helena tight. There was no sound at first, just the light filling the Hall of Kings, burning away the smoke, the holograms, the fighting figures. Then the noise came. A deep, tearing roar that shook the bones of the station. It was the sound of Gondolin breaking apart. The light faded as quickly as it came, leaving only darkness for a heartbeat. Then, the station heaved. The floor under the throne split open. The beautiful crystal walls cracked like ice. The ceiling groaned and started to fall. Chunks of metal and stone rained down. The whole structure shook violently, coming undone. Outside, in the cold silence of space, Gondolin Station was no longer a shining jewel. It was a broken thing. A giant flower of fire bloomed from its heart, pushing outwards. The crystal tower snapped and tumbled away. The gardens were ripped apart. The warships of Queen Helena's fleet, caught close to the station, were hit by the expanding wave of fire and broken metal. Some blew apart instantly. Others spun wildly out of control, trailing smoke and debris. Helena's mighty Iron Fist fleet was being crushed. Deep within the station, far from the Hall of Kings, a small hidden hatch blew open. Smoke billowed out. A figure stumbled into a cramped dark space. A tiny escape pod tucked away near the reactor access tunnels. It was Lisa Burke. She was covered in ash and grime, her clothes torn. One side of her face was badly burned. She gasped for air, collapsing against the pod's cold metal wall. She had survived. Trapped in the reactor chamber with the enemy soldiers, she had done the impossible. As the core reached its final seconds, she had used her metal arm to rip open a weak point in the wall, scrambling into an old maintenance tunnel just before the chamber turned into pure fire. She crawled through smoke and shaking corridors, guided only by the fading emergency lights, until she found the pod she had secretly prepared long ago, hoping never to need it. With shaking, bleeding hands, Lisa pulled herself into the pilot seat. Her metal fingers stabbed at the controls. The pod's small engines coughed, then roared to life. Outside the tiny viewport, the station was tearing itself to pieces. Fire bloomed everywhere. She saw Helena's big flagship caught in the explosion, breaking in half like a toy. "Go!" Lisa rasped, slamming her fist onto the launch button. The little pod shot away from the dying station like a stone from a sling. It tumbled violently for a moment before the stabilizers kicked in. Lisa wrestled with the controls, steering the pod away from the worst of the flying wreckage. She turned the pod just enough to see back. Gondolin was gone. Where the beautiful station had floated, there was now only a spreading cloud of fire and tumbling pieces, big and small. Helena's fleet was shattered, only a few ships on the very edge struggling to escape the destruction. The star behind it all seemed dimmer now, watching the end. Lisa leaned back, exhausted. Tears cut clean lines through the dirt on her face. They had lost. Alan, John, Daniel, so many. Gondolin was dust, but Helena was gone too. Her evil empire had taken a terrible blow. Something dug into Lisa's side. She reached into her torn pocket. Her fingers closed around a smooth, cool object. She pulled it out. A small, clear crystal, glowing faintly blue from within. The data crystal. She had grabbed it from the engineering console just before the enemy soldiers burst in. It held everything. Gondolin's history, its knowledge, its songs, its memories of Earth. The legacy of the elves. She clutched the crystal tightly. It wasn't over. Not really. A crackling sound came from the pod's small radio. Static hissed. Then a voice, rough but strong, broke through. "Any survivors? This is the Free Ship Star's hope. We saw the light. We saw Gondolin fall. Helena's fleet is broken. Her grip is slipping. To anyone out there, ... we are rising. Gondolin's stand has lit the fire. The fight goes on." Lisa stared at the radio. A slow, fierce smile spread across her burned face. She wiped her tears away. She looked at the glowing crystal in her hand, then out at the stars. She set a course, away from the fading glow of destruction, towards the deep dark, where hope still hid. She wasn't just carrying a crystal. She was carrying a future. The story of Gondolin and the final stand of its people was just beginning. The stars would remember.